All right, I put out a poll and you people answered. So let's get into The Good, the Bad, and the Witcher. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, so before I get into that, did you guys see the trailer for the upcoming Christopher Nolan movie, Tenet? It looks really good. Really fucking good. I can't wait to see. Anything Christopher Nolan does, I'm usually excited for. I'm a fan. I'm a Christopher Nolan fan. Sue me. But this one looks to be a return to his style, kind of like the one of Inception. I honestly don't understand what the movie's about. I guess it's something to do with time. I don't know. Things with time usually give me a headache, but I'm looking forward to this one. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Tenet. It looks really, really good. Really fucking good. I'm very excited for this movie. And okay, so, before I forget, let me just give you a quick reminder. You can listen to the podcast everywhere. SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcast, Podcast Addict, everywhere. Just type in Super Dario World Podcast. You'll find it right there. And you can follow me on Instagram at Dario the Show or at Super Dario World. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, that's the easiest way for you to contact me. And so, actually, this very segment, I decided to do it because of a poll I put up there. I put up a poll on the Super Dario World Instagram, and I let people vote. And for those of you who are wondering, the results were 100%. 100% of you wanted The Good, the Bad, and the Witcher, so let's get started.
Evil is evil. Lesser. Greater. Middling. It's all the same.
All right, so before I get into it, I need to clarify a few things. First off, right off the bat, I love the show. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It was very enjoyable. I enjoyed every minute of it. Now, I need to clarify a few things before I get started. The Witcher is a TV show that's based on a video game that's based on a series of books. However, the TV show is actually closer. It's more related to the books than it is to the video game. Not entirely, but it is closer to. But it's really hard because they're separate things. One is based on the other, is based on the other, is based on the other, but it's their own its own unique thing. So I'm going to try to judge this show independently from the other two. It's hard. It's very hard. The Witcher is one of the greatest video game franchises out there. The Witcher 3 is one of the greatest video games out there. Some people would argue it's a masterpiece. I am one of those people. I only have issues with certain mechanics, like when you're... you know what? I'll just say it. When you're riding your horse and you're trying to hit somebody that's on your right, and for some reason he swings on the left, it really, really pisses me off. But other than a few janky mechanics, the world itself of The Witcher of the video game is very vast, and it's like a living, breathing world. The show is not that. No matter how well made that world is, it does not compare. It pales to comparison to what the video game is. The video game is a livable experience, okay? It's a 100% livable experience. You're living it, you're making the decisions, you're making everything, you're making every single choice Geralt makes. And also, you're following his perspective. The show is very different. You are a spectator. In that way, it's closer to the book. You are just experiencing the things that what these characters do. It's rough sometimes. To me, the greatest thing I can say about the show is that it really made me want to replay the video game. And actually, it made me pro tip. Right now, I believe on where was it? Oh yeah, on Steam, you can buy the Witcher, the original Witcher for like $3. So I got it. Steam Winter Sale, love it. And so I'm gonna replay that. I might live stream it if you want to check it out. I'm almost completely set up here in my studio for doing that. I just need to figure out a few things with the camera, and I've seen so many fucking videos on trying to fixing that stuff. I'm an expert right now, so any questions you might have, I might be able to help you. But yeah, I'm working on that a little bit. But yeah, whatever. I went off on a tangent. I don't even remember where I am anymore. Yeah, the greatest thing I can say about the show is that it really, really, really made me want to replay the game. Because there's a few moments And the game it's very 360. There's always two sides to every story. The show's very similar. They show you two sides to every story. Nothing is really what it seems, and you have to make a choice in the game. Here, you don't make a choice. You see what Gerald's choice is. So it's a very different experience, but it's a great experience. I highly enjoyed every second of this show. I had a few complaints, as always, but let's get into that into more detail later. The big thing here is I'm trying to judge this show solely on what the information that's on the show. Nothing else. It's hard because sometimes you can tell that certain things are made for fans of that particular franchise. This one, I don't think it is. I don't think that you needed to play the game in order to be able to follow this show. That's very important. You do not need to play the games in order to be able to like this show or to understand it at all. It's hard. It'll be hard. There's a lot of kingdoms. There's a lot of names that are really weird. There's a lot of creatures. There's a lot of world building. There's a lot of mythology. There's a lot of stuff in there. But you should be able to follow it. At least I was watching it with somebody who has never played the game, and she was able to follow it. So and the people that I've talked to, they've been able to follow it. So that I'll give it credit to that, and I will judge the show solely on the information given to us on that show, okay? Nothing else. That is very important. I want to make that clear from the very first episode. Also, I was considering, should I do this just a one episode thing so that I judge the show in its entirety, or should I do an episode thing, like break down every episode? I decided to break down every episode because I worked really hard on that intro, and I really liked it, so I just want to keep playing it. I want to use it every chance I get. Now, it's hard because the show's completely out there. All 8 episodes are out there. So I guess that's the pros and cons of streaming now. But I wanted to break everyone down because I honestly, I don't mind doing it. So I'll just do it that way. So hopefully you're with me so far. Hopefully you agreed. And if not, well, it's my show. I can do whatever I want. Anywho, so let's begin with the good. All right. So the biggest, best, and most important thing, the key to this show, they nailed it. Henry Cavill, slow clap, kudos to you, man. It was an amazing performance. He is Geralt of Rivia. Dude nailed it to the T, to the voice, to the slightly annoyed look. The slightly annoyed, angry look. Well, it's not really angry. It's more like annoyed at everything, annoyed at life. He nailed that to a T. And I'll talk a little bit more about Henry Cavill and all that stuff because I have some other info that I got at Comic-Con. I'll talk about that more in The Witcher. But the best thing about the show, the key component here is The Witcher, the title character, and they nailed him. Like Henry Cavill's performance, I have no complaints. No complaints whatsoever. It was great. Like honestly, he never seemed out of place. It never seemed ridiculous. Nothing ever really. He played it straight, and that's how you have to play it. Sometimes you could tell that an actor thinks he's too good to what he's doing, and they just say a line, they don't believe it. Here, most of the casting jobs, I think most of the casting jobs, they picked really, really good actors because they're playing it straight. They believe every single line they're saying, even if it's extremely ridiculous. So kudos for the casting job. Best thing there was the casting so far, and the casting of Henry Cavill as Geralt of Rivia, top notch. I also liked that the story is not spoon-fed to you, right? At one point in the very first episode, which is the one that I'm going to talk about right now, they explain to you that you're watching 2 different timelines, but they don't flat out say it. You need to kind of deduce it. And I like the way that they did it with the queen saying, "Oh yeah, I had my first battle when I think it was Cirilla telling the queen that, oh yeah, you had your first battle when you were my age." And then afterwards, Ramfrey saying, "Oh yeah, no, this Queen Calanthe of the line of Cirtha." I always forget that freaking kingdom. It's really hard to say. Let me see. What's the name of this? Anyway, Kingdom of Sintra. I was close. Sintra. Anyway, so the queen, the princess of Sintra, she just had her first victory. Blah blah. And so that's, you're like, oh, okay, different timelines. Interesting. I already kind of suspected it because of, again, things that I've already heard. But it was really cool to see how they were managing it. They don't say it. They don't give you a little thing down, a little caption down there saying like, oh, a different timeline or whatever, or different place of the world. They just go, man, and you have to catch up, which is great. I believe it's great for a TV show. Visually, I think it looked phenomenal. The effects look great. The costumes look great. Every single thing. Visually, it's a very beautiful show. And Netflix's objective here is to take over Game of Thrones. Honestly, I think this is an extremely strong showing. Right now, it's probably my favorite show on Netflix. Before, my favorite show on Netflix, and I thought the best show on Netflix was Daredevil. That one's dead, unfortunately. It's dead and buried. It ended. Well, it didn't end. They canceled it after its best season, which is ridiculous. Is the one thing that I won't forget Disney Plus. They won't forgive them unless they bring it back. But, yeah. Right now, I might be on a high. I might be in a Witcher high, but I don't care. I think that right now, The Witcher is the best show on Netflix. I loved every second of it. It was real. It had consequence. I mean, real for fantasy, but what I mean is they played it straight. There wasn't a lot of BS going on or ex machinas going on, and there were consequences. There were actual consequences to the decisions made by the characters, which is great, which I love. Awesome. So that was the good. Let's move on to the bad. All right, for some reason with the bad, I've noticed that I've just started going through the story of the episode, and I just throw out little complaints here or there. And so I think, you know what? If I'm doing it for The Mandalorian, might as well do it for The Witcher too. So I'll break down the story of the episode, right? So the episode starts with Geralt fighting what we later discover is a Kikimora. It's a fight in the swamp. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was a little concerned after this opening. I was very, very concerned after this opening because I thought that fight looked really silly. And let me explain. First off, there's always a risk when you're doing fantasy that what you're doing is going to look very stupid. Honestly, unless you have a really high budget, fantasy it usually comes out looking a little bit stupid. Fortunately, they had enough of a budget and they played it. Most of the show is great. That opening fight against the Kikimora bothered me because I was like, it was concerning because I thought like, oh, please don't let this be the direction that they're going, because it was clearly made by somebody who does not know what to do in a fight. Now, I'll do mental gymnastics here, and I know this is just nitpicking. It was just I didn't love it because first off, if you're fighting somebody who's bigger and stronger than you and heavier, you do not want to fight them with your legs in knee-deep in water. You don't. Because any advantage you might have in speed, you're going to lose it. You're going to immediately lose it. And if somebody who's bigger and stronger than you grabs you, you're probably dead. Especially if they put you underwater. Now, I did this, a friend of mine, he liked doing pretty much anything goes fighting. And so sometimes we practice. He taught me some moves and all this stuff. And I can't tell you how exhausting it is to have somebody just right on top of you. Like, just the only thing they're doing is just they're letting gravity do it, or they're like pushing down on you. And even if they're not heavier than you, it's really, they do that in the UFC a lot. Sometimes they just get on top of you. You can't breathe. It's exhausting. You get so tired so quickly. So imagine like a giant spider-like monster putting all their weight on you while you're underwater. Must be exhausting. However, it was made clear that the Witcher was taking some of his... they didn't see the name, so I won't bring the name up. That he was taking a potion or an elixir that made him... like I said, I don't know which one he was taking. But that heightens his senses, heightens his abilities. Also, he's a Witcher, which is already a mutated creature, I guess, in itself. So maybe that's the reason why he survived it. Maybe that's why he was able to put up a fight. I was just a little bit concerned. Again, this was just... I would have done it differently. If I were fighting a giant spider-like creature, I wouldn't do it in water. It is a horrible, horrible idea. But that's, again, not terrible. From then, Geralt reaches the town of Blaviken. He goes into the bar hoping to get information of the alderman, right? Of where the alderman is, because he wants to sell the head of the Kikimora, pretty much. Or let him know that, hey, yeah, I killed him. I had your flyer. Now, this is actually great. I remember the first time it captures the ambience of kind of like the hostility people have towards Witchers. It's really weird. I remember the first time I played the Witcher video game, and I was like, why does everybody hate the Witchers? I mean, we kill monsters. What the fuck? But people don't like them. It's like they're mutants, and they look at them as monsters, and they're scary. And so you eventually kind of get it. And I really, really liked how they captured it here. It was very classic. It was a very classic standoff and all this stuff. And they also introduced there the character of Renfrey, who was played by Emma Appleton. I thought she was great. Honestly, her casting also was great. She was very memorable. She was very likable. And you're like, oh, okay, she's kind of like a mob boss there or something because the dudes are actually listening to her. It's weird. So that whole bar scene was great. It was great. No issue with that. Then we meet the alderman's daughter, which is Marilka, who I also loved. Again, great casting. She did not shut up. She was a total psycho. It was great. And she takes him to see the wizard, which I forget his name. I think it was Master Irion, but actually turns out to be Master Stegobar. Now that conversation between Stegobar and Geralt was phenomenal. I love because they already have a lot of lines from the video game. They have a lot of lines from the book, and they also introduced a lot of lines. And here they have some of my favorite ones just in that conversation. Like, all you wizards are the same. You speak nonsense by trying to look wise. Speak normally. Loved it. It was great. Now, and however, from that particular conversation, I could tell that the director had played the video game a little, because there's a moment when Gerald just leans on the fountain. That's 100% from the video game. It looks so awkward, so out of place, but it's exactly what would have happened in the video game. So I don't know. I liked it. Anyway, from Master Stegobar, we learn that he wants to kill Renfrey because Renfrey wants to kill him, and because of a curse that she's mutated. She's supposedly going to bring back Lilith, and blah 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 blah. Anyway, we learn from Gerald basically like, this is none of my fucking business. I'm walking away, right? Walking away, and he leaves. Then we're treated to the other side of the story, which is Renfrey trying to hire Geralt to kill Stregobar. Now, this is 100% the video game where Geralt gets to choose. Here, you don't get to choose. You're just along for the ride, which was great. And so we get the other side of the story. We get the other side of the strategy, and the Witcher again decides, I'm not getting into this. That conversation was great. Honestly, those two conversations, the both sides of the story, that actually making the audience be like, oh, well, you should help her. Or like, what if that guy's lying? Oh, this whole story, the whole, we've heard this story before, the stepmother saying that the stepdaughter who's a princess and in the way of her heirs is kind of crazy. This sounds kind of shady stuff. I'm loving it so far. So from there, we get introduced to the kingdom of Sintra and Ciri. Also the queen, and that whole introduction is great. She's playing with the kids in the streets. We get to see the king's court and all that stuff, and we get to introduce also to Nilfgaard and to the possibilities of war, right? So far, so good. So far, no complaints, until we get into the battle for Sintra. Now, I don't know why. Seriously, I do not know why. For the life of me, I don't understand why, with all the fucking budget in the world, they can't get one person, and I mean one person, who's read a book about military strategy or fighting in general. Anybody. Like, literally anybody. It's really fucking stressful. Now, does it look cool? Sure, I'll give it to them. Most people probably wouldn't care, but I care. And so I complain about it. Now, my big issue here is that there was no strategy whatsoever. There was one army in one hill, and there was one army in another hill, and they both charged to the bottom of that hill. Now, usually, You use artillery before they get at you. You use archers, but apparently there was only one fucking archer in this entire episode. Whatever, doesn't matter. And you use a whole bunch of stuff before they get at you. And if you're going to charge at the enemy, you want to charge downhill, which was what they did. But then they met up at the bottom of the hill, so basically their charge was useless. Usually, you remember what Obi-Wan told Anakin? Give up, Anakin. I have the high ground. You want the high ground, all right? Whenever you're fighting, if you have the high ground, you're already winning because the other guy has to go against gravity. You're hitting with gravity, they're hitting against gravity. That makes them tired. If they have to run uphill, they'll get tired. So, them charging with horses downhill made sense. The only issue is that they both met at the bottom of the hill. So that whole charge that you had with your horse going downhill was null and void. Also, you're getting charged by horses and the other dudes don't have spears and a shield wall. It was stupid, all right? It was stupid. Military strategy there was stupid. It was horrible. Horribly done, horribly planned. And they didn't hear... Another thing I didn't get is that there were the ships that were supposed to get there that were hit by a storm, but they figured out that in the middle of the battle... Why would you have the battle outside? Why wouldn't you defend the castle? It was just atrocious. You could argue that they were outside because they were expecting reinforcements from the ships, but whatever. Then the king gets killed, which sucks because that character was great. The king was great. I really liked that guy. But he gets killed with an arrow through the eye by the only archer there. And then the queen decides, you know what? That dude who's really far away and apparently can hit the king in the eye from like 500 yards away. I'm going to go charge at that guy. Because that's not a stupid idea. Anyway, she gets injured and I'll come back to her. I'll come back to finish her story later. So from there, we get the Renfri who returns and tells Geralt. And now this is very interesting. On the second viewing, at first I thought, okay, well, Renfri lied there, right? She says like, oh no, I'm going to be leaving Blaviken tomorrow, blah, blah. She never says that she's not going to kill the wizard. She says, I'll leave Blaviken tomorrow. So she never really lied to Gerald. She just kind of made him think that she decided to leave with him. And when in actuality, she was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill him. I'm going to kill him and then I'll leave. That's the plan. So that was very cleverly done. That was very clever wordplay. Again, another great conversation. The one-on-one conversations on this show, loving them so far. Great. From there, we move on to what is it? Oh yeah. So the Witcher wakes up from sleep and he has a dream. Now this is very confusing. I did not understand if he and Renfri hooked up or something. We assumed it did, but it wasn't very clear if Renfri gave him the vision, if Destiny gave him the vision. It was, or if even Stregobor gave him the vision. This was very confusing. If I'm taking a guess, this vision came from Destiny, right? This dude is clearly wrapped up in Destiny's finger, so I'm assuming it was Destiny. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that for the moment. And so he goes into town, and we have one of my favorite things in the world, a one-shot fight, which was awesome. Geralt kicking ass and taking names and all in one shot, not a single cut. It's great. I love watching those because to me it's trying to figure out and with swords, it's like, how the fuck did he stab that person? How did he block it? And what they do, is it digital? Is it, what would they do? I love it. It's just one of my favorite things ever. I'm trying to figure out how they did it, how the choreography and everything. It was great. That's where I was like, okay, that's what Henry Cavill could do. He's not just fighting a giant spider and looking silly. He's actually kicking ass and taking names. It was badass, all right? It looked badass. It was the best scene in the entire episode. Then he fights Renfri, who was going to kill, what's her name? Marilka. It also a great fight. Honestly, kudos to whoever Renfri was and who did that fight. It was great. It was honestly really, really, really well choreographed, really well everything. Even though you could tell the witch was kind of trying to not hurt her, but Renfri was bloodthirsty. It was great. It was a great fight, which ends with her getting killed, and then kind of the prophecy of the dream being fulfilled. And this is, the first time that the Witcher actually has to choose a side. And again, as Stregobor said, as Ramfrey said, he'll never know if he made the right choice. Correct? He'll never know. Now he's involved. Now he's not in the sidelines, and now there's consequences to his actions, as we will learn in other episodes. But this is the inciting incident, right? This is the thing that changes everything. Before, everything was normal. He was just a Witcher who did a job. He came into one town. He left. Nobody cared. Now he is known. Now he made a choice. Now he picked a side, and now things are set in motion. It was great. Honestly, it was a great way of putting it, and it also the way that it was edited, the way that it was put in parallel with the story of Ciri. Now let's continue with her. So Queen Calanthe is injured and is dying, and so she decides to let's get Ciri out of there, and she decides to kill herself. Right now, I was ripping my hairs off. Ripping my hairs off when I saw this scene when Nilfgaard was invading the city. Because as they were like, they broke down the gate, and as they were rushing to the castle, there was not a single fucking person manning the walls. Not one! Just a guy. Have a guy. You have the budget to make all these CGI fucking soldiers. Why can't you make one guy, just one manning the wall, at least one lone archer? Come on, you have the budget for archers. What the hell's wrong with you? And so they just walk through the city like it's nothing. And this is a particular pet peeve of mine. Because for those of you who don't know, castles, fortresses, walls, they weren't designed to look pretty. They were killing machines. They had a purpose, not just keeping people out, but making it easier to kill people, right? Every single entrance, every single thing is designed to kill people. That's why it's so hard to take a castle. That's why you usually starve them out, or you siege them with siege weapons from a distance. They are designed to kill you. It's not easy. So them walking in there like it's their fucking house really annoys me. Nobody manning the fucking wall really annoys me. And then they make it all the way to the gates where Mousesack, is trying to block it with magic. Eventually his magic ran out, and all that time we didn't see a single arrow being shot at them. Like, not a arrow. One. Dude, just grab up like a mug or something and throw it at them. Do something. You're just waiting. What was their plan? They're just gonna sit there until, death, right? Death, sure, death. Why not? It really bugged me. Like, the big issue I've seen so far with this show is they have really no context. They need to understand that there's a world outside of the scene that they're shooting. Like, Calanthe was in there dying. The world outside was really quiet. I mean, it should have been an uproar. There should have been like you should feel the weight of the scene. You should feel the weight of the moment, the weight of the enemies outside. And usually that's done with audio, which they didn't do here. It was a failure. Also, they could have shown, I don't know, maybe some soldiers trying to blockade the wall. I get why they didn't do it. It would have been adding extra scenes that weren't necessary for characters that were about to die. But something, just one dude leaning against the wall. Just one. So somebody trying to do something smart. It drives me nuts. But anyway, after that, we get Mousesack gets Ciri out of there. Mousesack kind of goes off on his little side fight, which why he didn't win it immediately. I guess he was a wizard, but he was drained, so maybe distraction, whatever. Laszlo, who was helping Ciri, gets killed by the one lone archer, who's apparently the greatest archer in history, by the way. Getting a knight, getting a king in the eye from that far away in the middle of a battle, kudos. Getting a knight riding on horseback, right in the throat, kudos. That dude's the greatest archer ever. Legolas is looking at him from a distance and being like, oh, that's actually pretty good, respectable. That's really nice. Good eye. Anyway, we don't know that guy's name yet, so I won't mention it. I looked up the IMDb and all that stuff, so I'll wait. And so, because again, it doesn't. Well, I'll just tell you, his name is Cahir, I think, and whatever. Ciri gets taken by Cahir, and so he's riding off into the woods, and then Ciri unleashes her screeching powers, which makes a rift kind of happen in the earth and a tower to fall, and therefore she manages to escape, right? Which is it's fine. And then we have like there's a word for it. There's editing, mixed editing. Oh my god, my teachers would kill me right now. There's this type of editing. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but they're happening at the same time, and we see like the girl in the world says your destiny, all that stuff. Great done, great storytelling, kudos. So overall, in those two things, the good is really good, the bad is just either particular pet peeves of mine or just outright stupidity. I hate it when they think that we're stupid, but again, in here it's not as egregious as with other stuff. It's mostly that I think they're stupid and they don't know how these things work. Seriously, hire one person who knows a little bit of these things, or read a book, a military strategy book, please. It's driving me nuts. Anyway, that's it for the bad, so let's move on to The Witcher. All right, so as I've mentioned several times before in the podcast, I actually got to be a part of the Hall H panel, Hall H panel of The Witcher at Comic-Con. It was great. It was a great experience, and afterwards I got to be part of the roundtable press stuff where we got to meet Siri, we got to meet Yennefer and the producer of the show. Unfortunately, Henry Cavill did not show up, that son of a bitch, which is honestly the only reason most of us were there was to meet Henry Cavill. It was like, dude, Superman, yeah, exactly. And also because he's I'll get into it. So let me just give you a fun fact about the show. And then I'll give you a fun fact about the world around the show, right? So in this episode, we had Geralt hunting down a Kikimora. Now, a Kikimora is an actual mythological being, he's a legendary Slavic creature from Slavic mythology, but in the show, it's like the giant spider thing, right? It's a giant spider thing. In the real world, it's actually a little bit more interesting. So, in the real world, it's actually a spirit, and Mora in, I believe in Latin, or in, what's the word mean? What's... Is it mortis? Mortis maybe in Slavic it means the same thing, but mora usually means death, torture, or to bother, or to strangle. So here in Polish mythology and all that stuff, the Kikimora was actually a spirit that supposedly went into your house, and it was a bad spirit, and it strangled you in your sleep. So it was kind of you ever experienced sleep paralysis? It's a horrible thing. And usually most people claim that when they have, in Spanish we have a saying, it's called se te subió el muerto, which means that it's like the dead person jumped on top of you. It's a horrible feeling. It's like you're awake, but you can't move, and you usually feel like there's somebody on top of you strangling you. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. Anyway, back in Slavic mythology, it was thought that it was a Kikimora. Since they didn't have an explanation for sleep paralysis, they just felt like they were being strangled by some ghost on top of them, some dead person. They named it Kikimora. So, fun fact for you guys: that's the real world Kikimora, not the video game one, not the Witcher one. This is Slavic mythology. There you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, so let's talk about a little bit of Henry Cavill, because we got to hear the story of how he got casted for this show. And I probably already mentioned this, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna keep it in the context of The Witcher. Henry Cavill is a gamer, right? From what I understand, he's a big World of Warcraft guy. And if I remember correctly, I think I saw him tell a story of how when he got casted for Superman, he got a call from Zack Snyder, and he was in the middle of a game. I think he was fighting a dragon or something. And so he's like, all right, please hold. And so he puts Zack Snyder on hold. And after he beats him, like, all right, I'm sorry, Zack, I was. This is when he was about to find out if he was Superman or not, and so he was like, oh, or if he was gonna get an audition for it. He's like, all right, sorry, Zack, I had to slay a dragon, and so stuff like that. So the dude's a gamer, and he was obsessed with The Witcher. He put in a buttload of hours, or this is what he said in the panel. He said he'd put in a ton of hours into the video game. He loved it. So the second that he heard that Netflix was gonna make a version of it, like the second that he heard, he immediately got his people to find out who the fuck was making it, who was the producer, and to set up a meeting. Now, at this point, they didn't have a script. I think the girl hadn't even read the books yet. So, because it's the showrunner is a woman. I don't remember her name right now. It doesn't matter. So they didn't even have a script. They had nothing. But she already had Henry Cavill breathing down her throat like, I want to be Gerald Rivia. I want to be Gerald Rivia. I want to be Gerald Rivia. Well, he probably did with a British accent, but it doesn't matter. So as the process keeps moving forward and forward, Henry Cavill, he pestered her enough. They got to meet face to face. He kind of talked a little bit about the character, blah blah, but he still didn't get the role. And so Henry Cavill had his people call her every single fucking day asking for an update. And so it was Henry Cavill calling his agent, hey, did you hear from The Witcher? No, call him right now. So he pestered her every single fucking day until after they had the script done. And after it was done, the producer said, all right, we didn't exactly write it with Henry in mind, but having met him did have some certain influence in how we wrote the character, blah, blah, blah. And so that's how he ended up getting casting, because he kept pestering her enough that he got the first meet. And once he kind of inserted himself into her mind. So as they were writing him, she kind of kept that in mind. Also, he's a pretty big name, fucking Superman. What attaching Superman to your show would mean? It's already a big franchise, right? It's already a huge fucking franchise that people are beyond excited for. Attach Superman to it, and he's actually great at it, and he actually delivers an amazing performance. What more could you fucking want? Anyway, so that's how Henry Cavill ended up becoming Geralt of Rivia. Now, the way that he trained for it, he actually does all his stunts. Henry Cavill said that in his gym, in his office, and in his home, he has a whole bunch of swords. And basically, whenever he had a free second, he was sword training every single day. And it shows. That fight at the end shows. That one shot with him doing it, honestly, it makes it better. I love it when actors do their own stunts. The explanation for it seemed kind of logical. He's like, Henry Cavill's explanation for it was, well, I have a certain vision of how I wanted Geralt to look, and and it's not just how he sounds, how he moves, how he everything, and how he fights. And so I wanted it to come out exactly as I would have as I imagined it, and only I could have done it. And so, well, not only I could have done it, but he wanted to feel real in a way. I guess it's a respect for the character thing. And so he insisted, and one of the conditions was that he was going to be doing his own stunts. He was going to be doing his sword fighting, and he put hours and hours and hours and hours of work into the craft. And it shows. Like I said, it shows. That fight at the end, that one shot, that is, honestly, that's beyond high-level stuff. It was great. It's one of my favorite one-shot sword fights that I've seen in a while. Really well done. Really, really well done, everyone. So there you go. That's the fun Witcher. You got two today. You got to learn a little bit about the show, a little bit about Henry Cavill and how he got casted, and I believe that's it for today. Holy crap! Almost 40 minutes. Anywho, hope you enjoyed that. Tomorrow I will probably do episode 2. This is gonna be an easy week for me. I'm just gonna have to watch The Witcher again and break down every episode. This, honestly, it's hard to be negative. Most of it was good. This is going to be very different than other ones. I mean, it's still me. I can find the only fucking cloud in the sky, right? The only gray cloud in the the only gray in the rainbow. I can find a way to finding it. But that was you know what I mean. Anyway, any comments, questions, suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram, at SuperDario_World. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow.